Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am Nate the Effing Great, and this is a Game Changer Extra here, of course, on Spreaker.com, as well as the other formats that I could mention here and there. This is actually a very interesting list that I came up with actually a few years ago. It was actually in 2015 when I first started podcasting that I actually started talking about this. And basically what this list was the top 10 wrestlers who made Wrestlemania. People who have had such a huge contributing factor to the matches. People who have really made WrestleMania into the huge program that it is today. Just so many people I went through at this list, and it was very hard to narrow it down to 10, but I was able to do it, and I'm going to talk about it. Before I get into that, I think it's only fair that I have a couple of honorable mentions. Actually, I have about 5 honorable mentions to put on here. One of them is kind of a shocker for a lot of people, and that being Triple H. Reason being for Triple H is because, yes, he's had a lot of WrestleMania appearances, but I really associate him and a lot of his great WrestleMania deals with the matches that he's had with The Undertaker. Those are the ones that really stand out to me as some of the best matches. People could argue that their best matchup was WrestleMania 17. Others could argue 27. There are others that will also argue 28. I'm more impartial to 17. But yeah, other than those matches, there hasn't really been anything too standoutish as to one of the things where it's like, oh, this is one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. That's just my opinion. Also on here is Daniel Bryan, main thing. Miracle on Bourbon Street, WrestleMania 30, where he defeated Triple H as well as defeated Randy Orton and Batista all in the same night to become the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. That's kind of very hard to overlook when you think of WrestleMania. Another person on here that might surprise people is Chris Jericho. Jericho had that instant classic at WrestleMania 19, as well as his great matchup that recently Fretz and I talked about at WrestleMania 20. He also had a great showing at WrestleMania 17. There's a lot of nitpicky matches here and there that have been really good. One of the surprising matches on here was the one at 25 where he had the handicap elimination matchup. Not because of the match itself, but because of the fact that we got to see a prelude of what was going to happen the following month, which would be Chris Jericho and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. A great matchup that they had at Backlash. It all started right here at 25, but Jericho is definitely one of those guys that deserves quite a bit of credit. Bret Hart is another one that came to mind. A lot of people might remember him doing his match at WrestleMania 9, 10, as well as 12 with Shawn Michaels. He also had the great match with at 13, which I will talk to more in depth as I talk about his opponent for that year. But yeah, Bret Hart definitely has been one of those guys who has been a key hold in here, but not quite to the top 10 level. And the final honorable mention is Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Of course, a lot of people remember him from WrestleMania 3 with his match with his opponent who is on the list. And I'll get to talking about that, but also, of course, his match at WrestleMania 25 as well. So without further ado, guys, this is my top 10 wrestlers who made WrestleMania. And starting off at number 10, a bit of a controversial pick, but one that I cannot deny at all, is CM Punk. Now, the reason why I have CM Punk here as number 10 is because in 3 consecutive years, he had probably the match of the night at all 3 WrestleManias. He had his match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania 27, which I will still stand firmly behind the fact that it was match of the night. Some people would say Undertaker versus Triple H was, but I think that this matchup definitely stood among that as well. You had WrestleMania 28 between him and Chris Jericho, another matchup that was definitely a highlight, if not match of the night. And then, of course, WrestleMania 29, another great match of the night. It's one of those things where you look at it and it's still a damn shame that he never got that WrestleMania main event, but to have 3 consecutive match of the night quality matches at all 3 of these WrestleManias definitely highlights, and it's one of those things that really helps me believe that he does contribute quite a bit to WrestleMania. At number 9, I have WWE Hall of Famer Kurt Angle. With Kurt Angle, it's kind of easy to put him in this list because of the fact that almost every other year he's had either a match of the year or match of the night candidate. When you look at it from his debut at WrestleMania 2000. The 2 out of 3 fall triple threat match was pretty good, to say the least. But then he would go to an even bigger heights when he took on Benoit at WrestleMania 17. He went against Kane at 18. Had a great matchup, an instant classic against Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 19. A really great matchup with Eddie Guerrero at 20. Another fantastic match at 21 with Shawn Michaels. And then the triple threat match at 22 with Ray and Randy. Of course, he would not make his return until WrestleMania 34, teaming with Ronda Rousey against Triple H and Stephanie. But you look at Kurt Angle's resume just there, and it definitely shows that he is one of those guys who is a highlight when it comes to WrestleMania, because he brings in the technical style, the wrestling style that WrestleMania needed to have. So honestly, it was very hard for me to say that Kurt Angle didn't deserve to be on this list, and he is definitely worthy of being on this list. Number 9, I have Macho Man Randy Savage on this list. The reason why is because it's kind of the same situation with CM Punk, but with Randy Savage, he not only has good quality matches, but he also has great quality moments. Just to do case in point, WrestleMania 3 with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat for the Intercontinental title was a great matchup between them. WrestleMania 4, a year later, he would go on to win the WWE title from Ted DiBiase in that tournament. You cannot deny him as one of the guys who really helped make WrestleMania what it was. Also creating that moment after the match by putting the belt on Elizabeth's shoulder, having her hoisted up, just the great emotion there. All that hard work paid off for Randy Savage. It was a great moment there. Following year, he would face off against Hulk Hogan for the WWE title in the implosion of the Mega Powers, which was a very hot storyline going into that year's WrestleMania. A couple years later, he would have that match with Ultimate Warrior where Randy Savage lost and he would have to retire, only for a few years later to face Ric Flair for the title. But, just after that matchup, seeing Randy Savage and Elizabeth reunited, they share an embrace. It's one of those moments where it's just hard to think of. That's still one of the major things talked about to this day, is Randy Savage, apologize, basically embracing Elizabeth, having that moment where they are reunited again. You saw it. The fans were emotional about it. It was just one of those moments where it was absolutely great. So definitely wanted to put Randy in this list. At number 7, I have The Rock, one of my favorite wrestlers, if not my favorite wrestler of all time. He definitely does do a great job in creating great quality matches. From his match with his trifecta matches, I should say, with Stone Cold Steve Austin, his match with Hulk Hogan, his matches with Cena, and even his match with Foley and Evolution definitely stand out to me. He definitely creates that great nostalgic feel that WrestleMania needed to have, but he also created a lot of great moments. So Rocky definitely deserves to be on this list, and I'm glad that I could keep him on this list. I would have loved him to be higher, but at the same time, there are just a few other guys that definitely created more moments than Rock. No disrespect. Number 6, I had to put him on here, and he definitely deserves to be on this list, and that is the man of the C Nation himself, John Cena, at number 6. A lot of times when you think of John Cena, you do think of him being the barrier of talent or winning all the championships and blah, 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 blah. But when it comes to WrestleMania, a lot of the best world title matches do feature John Cena. His match with Shawn Michaels at 23 was great. When he first won the title at 21, that was another really great moment. He had his match with Triple H, which, the crowd really did not give too much of a crap about, but it was still a good matchup. I really enjoyed it. His match against Batista, Triple H and Randy one year, his matches with The Rock, and as well as his match with Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania 30 was great. A lot of people are going to, of course, say, but he also fights The Miz at 27. Aside from that, you can't deny the track record that John Cena had. It was just really good to see a lot of these matches. I think that he may have main evented one too many times, but at the same time, he still created some good, wholesome matches. So it's hard for me to say that he does not, bring people in as far as WrestleMania goes. So it's one of those things where I could not deny that the Master of the C Nation, the Master of the You Can't See Me, deserves to be on this list. All right, so now we are at our top 5 best men or best wrestlers to really make WrestleMania, really help get WrestleMania to that pivotal moment. At number 5, I have Stone Cold Steve Austin. And when you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin's track record at WrestleMania, it's very hard to deny that he has made a huge impact. His trifecta with The Rock at WrestleMania is, been mentioned before, so I'm not going to hammer it too much. His match with Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13 is one of those things that helped turn him into the Bionic Redneck, turn him into the Rattlesnake. Also, his match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14 was one of those matches where it started a new era. So when you think of WrestleMania, obviously one of the main guys you have to think about is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And the first thing I think that people think about when they come to Stone Cold Steve Austin and WrestleMania, other than his match with The Rock, is that match with Shawn Michaels. Because there was that legendary line of JR who said, "The Austin era has begun." So it was one of those things where it was easy to put him on the list, especially top 5, definitely well-deserved for the Hall of Famer. And number 4 is another Hall of Famer, that being the rated R superstar Edge. Now, a lot of people are probably asking, why would you put Edge over Stone Cold Steve Austin? For me, it was kind of one of those things that I looked at and I thought, it's one of those things that I really had a hard time overlooking. Let's go through his track record then. For the majority of his career, he was practically undefeated at WrestleMania. You had his back-to-back TLC matches at WrestleMania 16 and 17. He defeated Booker T at 18. He missed out on 19, unfortunately, as well as on 20, which was a really big downer for him. But for him to come back for another ladder match, and he won the first ever Money in the Bank match. He had his match with The Undertaker, match with Chris Jericho, and then his final match on WrestleMania was against Alberto Del Rio. His final matchup, period, was against Alberto Del Rio. He's just one of those guys that a lot of people definitely really look at, and I would not call him Mr. WrestleMania, but he is still one of the key cornerstones, in my opinion, of what WrestleMania was, because he brought in the extreme moments. He really brought in the dastardly villain side. He really brought in all of these great, memorable moments to WrestleMania, and it's hard for me to overlook that. I mean, Stone Cold Steve Austin has brought some really great moments in and of itself, but you talk about, history making, you talk about unforgettable moments. Edge is definitely one of those guys who has more than one, and that's where it kind of boils down to, is Stone Cold Steve Austin had, a couple great moments here and there, but Edge has had consistent, memorable WrestleMania moments, I would dare say almost every year that he's competed at WrestleMania. Even his, quote-unquote loss at WrestleMania 23 featured a really crazy moment where he had Jeff Hardy just leap on him onto a ladder. So that was one of those things where I looked at and I thought, it's hard for me to say, hey, this guy doesn't deserve to be on the list. He deserved to be on the list. And we are down to the top 3. I think a lot of people are going to know who they are. But I think they might be, I don't think I'll be surprised with the order they have. Number 3, we have Hulk Hogan. When it comes to WrestleMania, of course, almost every single main event was headlined by Hulk Hogan. He was one of those guys that really helped give WrestleMania an identity, who helped really give WrestleMania that momentum. Even from WrestleMania, he's the one who main evented WrestleMania 1, the first WrestleMania. Him and Mr. T against Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper. Yep, that was it. They faced off against a couple other people, but I need to mention his match with Andre the Giant, Randy Savage. They did the whole anti-America versus America deal with him and Sergeant Slaughter. Later on, his matches did get kind of forgettable, but it wasn't until WrestleMania 18 where we saw the matchup between him and Rock, where it created a great moment as well as a great matchup between the two of them. Hulk Hogan is definitely still one of those guys who really does deserve to be on this list. He was indeed Mr. WrestleMania before Mr. WrestleMania himself, who, ironically enough, is number 2, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels is a guy who has created good quality matchups, if not phenomenal quality matchups, every year that he's competed at WrestleMania. Whether he was teaming up with the Rockers, whether he had this match with Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10, that legendary ladder match. He had the Iron Man match against Bret Hart. He had like a lot of great matches from 19 onward. It definitely was one of those deals where you look at all the matches that he competed in, and it was either match of the year or high match quality deals. You had his match with Jericho, the triple threat between him, Triple H, and Benoit, match with Angle. There's the little weird moment where he battled Vince McMahon at WrestleMania, but hey, I mean, it was still one of those things where he created a great legendary moment where he's on the top of the ladder, did the DX chop for the first time in a long time, and that elbow drop from the top. His legendary match against Ric Flair, and as well as the back-to-back Mania matches between him and Taker. It's hard to deny that Shawn Michaels is indeed living up to the moniker of Mr. WrestleMania. He definitely deserves every single credit when it comes to WrestleMania for creating unforgettable moments as well as impressive and very phenomenal high-stake quality matches. But doesn't make him number 1, because it should be no surprise that the number 1 guy who I believe truly made WrestleMania, The Undertaker. And I will tell you this, that all 3 years that I have done this, I did a list for this at 2015, 2018, and then this year for 2019. Undertaker has remained the undisputed man who made WrestleMania, and it's because of one thing: the streak. And not only the streak, but also the great matches that have come out of that. I mean, granted, his first few matches were kind of, not really memorable, but once you got to 17, you started seeing those matches just continue to elevate and elevate and elevate. There was a small hiccup. I would definitely say there was a small hiccup with his match with Kane at 20, as well as his match with Mark Henry at 22. But other than that, most of the matches that were going through that era was basically either match of the year or match of the night. His match with Randy Orton at 21 was really good. He had a great showing with Triple H, like I said, 17, 27, and 28. He had his great match with CM Punk at 29. 26 and 25 had his match with Shawn Michaels. His great match with Edge at 24. And again, people could probably say, later years his match still got a little bit iffy here and there. We kind of want to forget his matchup with Roman Reigns. His match with Bray Wyatt was okay, but nothing too memorable. His match with Cena was very memorable. Oh my God! I mean, about 2 minutes, he defeated John Cena. That was unexpected. And of course, he had one of the shocking moments of WrestleMania when he lost to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. It's very hard to recreate that kind of moment and that kind of feel, because everybody thinks, well, Undertaker's going to win. Undertaker's going to win. And he should have stayed undefeated, in my opinion. But Vince made the call. He said, we got to make 30. Can't miss WrestleMania. We have to have an unforgettable event. What could be more unforgettable than seeing Undertaker lose at WrestleMania? Even though people knew he was probably on his last leg, it's one of those things that you still, if you watched it, you kind of have those moments where it's like, you remember where you were when that happened. You remember where you were when certain what's some good examples? Certain verdicts were laid out in a court when 9/11 happened. This is another one of those things where it's like you remember where you were when Undertaker lost his streak to Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 30. It's one of those things that really just stands out. And when it comes to WrestleMania, Undertaker is indeed the man when it comes to making WrestleMania what it is. So those are my top 10 people who made WrestleMania. Now, obviously, I don't want to discredit anybody else who took part in WrestleMania because they are a part of history. So I'm going to say this right now, that in addition to the honorable mentions that I had there, everybody who ever competed at WrestleMania definitely deserves their credit. They deserve to have every single bit of credit, as well as just a thank you for everybody that competed or was a part of WrestleMania in some way, shape, or form. And we are approaching the 35th year anniversary of WrestleMania in just a few weeks. You cannot deny that it is going to be another historic as well as monumental night in the world of professional wrestling. Whether Vince McMahon wants to call it sports entertainment, or we still call it professional wrestling. So that is going to wrap it up for this edition of the Game Changer podcast. Special Game Changer Extra. You know where to find us on Facebook. You know how to get a hold of us on Twitter. And also, guys, definitely it's been a huge year. We've added a couple new people to the staff. Taylor, as well as Mr. Fretz, are a part of the team. Looking forward to seeing what comes with them in the future. It's going to be absolutely can't miss. So thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.